rock songs. But I digress. There's also a little keyboards on Diver Down, a little keyboards on Fair Warning, and a little keyboards on Women and Children First. So let's not get crazy. They pretend like Jump is the first keyboards that ever landed on a Van Halen album. Enough's enough with all that stuff. It dates all the way back to Women and Children First. I don't know why this is a big deal. But then the funny thing is, Eddie seems to have no problem with all the keyboards on 5150 or OU812. I don't know if it's because his buddy Sammy's in the band or what the story is. What do you think?
It's because his buddy Sammy's in the band. That's why.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, but this is a good point. They switched to keyboards, so what?
Yeah.
It's not like they were the first band to ever have keyboards in it. I just think it was because Ed was such a guitar god.
Yeah.
And here he is playing keyboards, and everyone was like, what? Like, why are you even bothering?
End of the
Come
world.
on, man.
End of the world.
I think that was the big deal, and that Jump was just such a huge pop song that catapulted Van Halen into the stratosphere. And they got catapulted not because of Eddie's guitar playing, but because of his keyboard playing. And everyone seemed to have an issue with that, except for Ed.
That's true. That's very true. Letter number 11 comes from Shannon the Dude, David. He says, check out this shiny machine. Just picked her up. What album goes first? 1984. Ease out of the lot with the title track Car on. Roof open and get the feel for the wheel for some jump. Then let her open up to the highway to Panama. Good time. Keep the moving parts clean. I guess Shannon got a new car, so congratulations on that. Although I have to say, Shannon, I disagree. You should not christen that car with anything from 1984. And what is the song that he should christen that car with? What Van Halen song? Come on.
Oh, what Van Halen song?
Yeah, come on.
I thought you were going to say I Can't Drive 55 by Sammy Hagar.
No, first of all, I don't want to hear about that because that is not a Van Halen song. I know everybody loves to talk about that. It bothers me that One Way to Rock is on the best of both worlds. That bothers me to no end. It is not a Van Halen song. What is the ultimate Van Halen song that he should be playing to christen that car with, Dave? Come on now, you know the answer.
Unchained.
Bingo.
That's correct. He's got it. All right. Well, that's for sure. Shannon the Dude, Unchained, that's the one that you crank up and let that monster riff come right through the speakers. On to letter number 12, and that is coming from No Nickname Thomas Howell. And I wonder if this is the Thomas Howell from The Outsiders. You never know, Dave. You never know. He could be a fan. Letter number 12, and he says, I have been listening since the first few episodes. Thanks for keeping Van Halen alive each month, and I listen every month on my drive to and from work and hate when each episode is over because I know you work so hard on the podcast. And one of my favorite podcasts you did was episode number 11 about the making of A Different Kind of Truth. I love every Van Halen album, and Different Kind of Truth has become one of my top 3 favorite Van Halen albums, and it should get more recognition. The band sounds great, and you could actually hear the bass. Dave's lyrics are so much deeper and clever than most of the early Van Halen songs, and I discovered Van Halen when he was 11 years old with Diver Down. He purchased every album back then within a few weeks. He says his main question for us is, what audio bootleg would you suggest from the 1982-83 tour that you would suggest listening to in my car or when I exercise? And do you know if Live Without a Net is sold in an audio format? I know they have a quote-unquote live recording with Sammy, but I was looking for something to listen to while I work out, and I used to have a live show recorded off the radio with cassettes, and I listen to that on my Walkman while I'm running. Thanks so much for giving us a monthly dose of VH. No nickname, Thomas Howell. Okay, cool. Well, the best Diver Down bootleg, and I think Dave will probably agree with me, is from the South American tour, the Diver Down Uruguay, 1983, the soundboard. You know that one, Dave?
Yes, I agree. That is probably my favorite bootleg.
Yeah.
The one from Uruguay. I believe it's February 5th. But any bootleg, any show from the South America tour is worth getting because a lot of them are in great quality and the band is in fine form, playing their butts off. There's also a great sounding one from Largo 1982. That's worth getting. I know there's bootlegs of the Live Without a Net audio only. If you look.
Yep, absolutely.
So you could find that.
And keep in mind, there's a full version and a shortened version. You want the full.
Right. 82 and 83, great live years for the band.
On that South American Diver Down Uruguay, they do Somebody Get Me a Doctor into I'm So Glad, and they also do a cover of Heartbreak Hotel on that. So that's really kind of cool. A little something extra.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of great covers on that show.
Yeah, lots of good stuff.
It's just, phenomenal. Love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Letter number 13, Dave. Lucky number 13 comes from Scott James, and he says, "Hey, guys, I want to say how much I enjoy and appreciate the podcast. It really takes me back and rekindles the excitement of when old Halen was together and kicking out the magic. You guys talk about bootlegs sometimes, and that's something I'm very interested in. I've been collecting for 25 years. I've done a lot of research, and I would like to open up a discussion with you guys about this, what you have and what's out there. I'm literally always on the prowl for holy grails, which, in my opinion, there are several. Looking forward to hearing from you guys and learning about the subject from you guys. Keep up the good work, Scott James." Okay, Scott, well, we were just talking about the Diver Down Uruguay. Definitely want to check that out, like Dave said. That is a must-have. I also want to say there's a 1998 one called Unchained Monsters. I've mentioned this before. This is the unreleased live album from Pittsburgh from the Gary tour, which, don't be afraid, Gary doesn't bite. This is a phenomenal album for sure. Sounds great. There's also another one from 1995 from the Balance Tour, Rocks the Beer Hall. Van Halen Rocks the Beer Hall. Love that one. I personally have a strong favorite from the 1984 era, the Monsters of Rock Stockholm. That's really good. Also the MSG from 1984, even though it's an audience, it's a good show. There's one called In the Club. It's also called Golden West Ballroom 1976 from the club days. Phenomenal. There's one 1977 Pasadena known as the Early Broadcast, also known as Die Laughing. That's another great one. One of my all-time favorites from 1979, Light Up the Sky. Love that one. There's from 1980, Women and Children First Tour. There's the Complete London from 1980. Love that. Oh, this one's another one. The last Van Halen show ever. It's called The Last Eruption from 2015. The band's last show at the Hollywood Bowl. My God, it's the last time Eddie ever played on stage. Gotta have that one. Full Moon Fair Warning from 1981. Love that one. And Martial Law from Philadelphia 1981. These are my faves. What about you, Dave?
I think you named a lot of good ones already. I think you said the one from October 15th, 1977, which is right before they broke big. That is a great one. You want to definitely look for that.
Is that the Pasadena one?
Yes. Yeah. There have been some soundboards released in the last few years that were on very limited vinyl, but then made their way digitally. I think one is Wichita in 1978, and there's another one that was at the Palladium in 1978. There's some other ones too. I can't remember, but there was definitely another one from 1979. So be on the lookout. I know there were like about 4 or 5 shows that have come out in the past few years, like out of nowhere, that were soundboards that are really worth looking for. And, you know, the band was like, you know, pardon the pun, but they were on fire at the time.
Absolutely.
So you want to look for those. Like I said, the 83 shows from South America are definitely ones you want to look for. The 81 tour is really good, but it's tough to find good quality from the 81 tour. The Holy Grail to me would be a soundboard show from the 81 tour.
Yeah, we have yet to really find that, but the two that I mentioned are good ones. Full Moon Fair Warning and Martial Law. That's about as best as you're going to get on 81.
Yeah.
Letter number 14 comes from Babbleman, Dave, and he says, "Hi, Dave and Dave. Thought I would send you a short email to talk about Van Halen. I have one question for you, and I think you guys could find out more information and thoughts on this. My question is, when Van Halen started producing albums, I was told they didn't make any real money until 1984. Because the record producers had taken all the profits on the first albums. Van Halen was under contract and was borrowed money to make albums so they could pay it back. And it took until 1984 to pay all the money back and fill the contract. So when they did 1984, they got to profit almost all the money. And at that time frame, Eddie Van Halen, I think, built 5150 and David Lee Roth parted ways. To sum it up, I was just wondering if the timing of the money could cause the split up of Van Halen due to the fact that they are super successful and they can do what they wanted. Dave wanted to be on his own and Eddie wanted to direct the band in a different way. So the impact of this new money, in my opinion, caused Van Halen to go in different directions. And I find it interesting that David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen took the split hard, more like they were in a marriage. The band is a marriage. And Eddie Van Halen took it hard, so it cost years of not talking to each other because of this trust being broken. I don't think it ever got fixed. David never gained the trust back. So, could you you look up the information as if the producers took most of the money on all albums until 1984, and your thoughts on the large amount of money causing the breakup. Thanks, Babbleman. Okay, Babbleman. Well, I want to tell you this. You're a mysterious guy, but we know you like to talk, hence the name Babbleman. But the band definitely made a lot of money on merch. Thanks to our friend Noel, who helped them set up that company doing their own merch. That was smart, number one. But when it comes to the recording process, it really didn't amp up until 1984. Like you said, you're correct in that assessment. However, the band made a lot of money. I said this earlier in our conversation. I believe it was in Van Halen News. They made a lot of money with Sam. During those years with Sam, the band really hit the gravy train. But Sam and Ed Loeffler really cashed in and they made a lot of money. This is where Sam is correct in saying he was incredibly successful with the band. He was. Don't get me wrong. The albums were all successful. They made a lot of cash, that's for sure. Now, Ted Templeman made more money on the Van Halen albums than the band did, and the band talk about that in that Different Kind of Truth interview where they discuss their percentages on the albums. Now, the Sammy years, like I said, were gravy train, but they were predicated on the massive success of 1984 and the albums prior, so it wasn't Sammy doing all that heavy lifting there. But then the band, Dave, you remember this? The band renegotiated their royalties. I think this was somewhere like in the early 2000s, I think, or late 90s, something like that. And the band made a sick amount of money on the reunion tours with Roth, for sure. And Eddie Van Halen, of course, made a lot of money with his endorsements and his guitar company. When it comes to the recording royalties, very, very tricky business because it's not their greatest income generator. A lot of it is from the road, from merch, and from endorsements, different ways and avenues. But especially, this is why a lot of bands do a lot of things like meet and greets and VIP stuff and all this extra stuff because they make a lot of cash doing all that stuff. But when it comes to like the recording project, that's the seed of the whole band, but very often they don't make a shit ton of money. However, I'll tell you where bands make a lot of money. If you have a hit song and then that song gets licensed and used in all different places, on compilations, on TV commercials, and I'll tell you what, The Who never saw as much money as they've ever seen as the money they make off of, what is that, CIS, that show that uses their song over and over again? You know how much money Pete Townsend made from that? It's like unbelievable. Also from like Tommy the musical that they did on Broadway. Like stuff like that made boatloads and boatloads of money. And also touring. Touring is very, very lucrative, of course. The whole money thing is very, very brutal, especially right now with the money in streams. And right now, they want you to just hear their music. They don't even count music as being the money maker now. It's a joke. What do you think?
In the immortal words of Cyndi Lauper, money changes everything.
Oh.
And I think it definitely affected everybody in 1984. I also think there were drugs and alcohol affecting people in 1984. And all this is blowing up already big and fragile egos. And I think the combination of all that is what led to the breakup.
Yeah, I also think, to be honest with you, that whole Crazy from the Heat thing blew Dave up way bigger than anybody thought that EP was going to do. That thing took the fuck off. And it was almost like a little kitschy, sort of fun, flighty thing, but it's just the timing of it. Those videos were so gargantuan. MTV didn't stop fucking playing them, and he became so big and such a big personality that he wanted to parlay that into a movie because he saw Prince do it. Dave was actually thinking about making it a lucrative thing, and he really wanted to take the band along with the process, but Eddie wasn't having it. Eddie was definitely going in a different direction, and Dave definitely wanted to be a big star, and that whole Purple Rain thing really, really rubbed Dave. And let me tell you something, there's also some personal shit behind that, because Dave was dating Apollonia at the time, and Prince made Apollonia break up with Dave because he didn't want him hanging on her arm while he's at the premiere and all this shit. So then Dave really got jealous because he realized that Purple Rain was fueling massive amounts of record sales for Prince. So he saw, oh wow, not only is Prince getting airplay on MTV with all these videos, but he's in the movie theaters too, and he's on the album charts. So he was seeing like, oh, I could do that, because he was already doing so well with the Van Halen videos from 1984. And then he parlayed that into the Crazy from the Heat. Let me tell you something. Hot for Teacher, Jump, Panama, California Girls, and Just a Gigolo have to be